I want to talk today about the Sunset Strip and all of the people just like me that came out to Los Angeles with a dream. You know, we had stars in our eyes. We had visions of golden guitar solos cascading from the heavens and beautiful women everywhere. And it was like an MTV fantasy for a kid from a small town with rockstar dreams. You know, Los Angeles seemed like the golden mecca of music. And it was enticing. It was an enticing and, sinewy, distant dream. And, going out to Los Angeles, I was only like 18 or 19 years old. And I could already play guitar, and I'd already played professionally for a couple of years. But we're talking small town stuff. I had not been in the big leagues, at least not yet. But what I want to talk today is about an entire industry based on and capitalizing on the dreamers. Now, who are the dreamers? The dreamers were people like me, people that moved to Los Angeles, wanting to get into the music industry, rockstar dreams, and rockstar dreams, but pauper's budget. That's the reality of it. But the crazy thing is, whenever there's a need, whenever there's a movement of people and people wanting, fame or fortune, it's the same thing in the finance industry. You've got all these influencers and businesses propped up to try to take money from people wanting to make money. So back in 1977, a magazine was published called Music Connection in Los Angeles. And this was the magazine. This was sort of this was it as far as the music industry in town. And when you're a new person in town and you don't have any connections, this is where you would start. You don't just move to town and all of a sudden you're in a band and all this. You're gonna have to do it probably the hard way, unless you already know people before you get out there. But the reality is, you're going to get out there, and maybe you go to school for a year like I did, going to GIT, try to meet some people there. But I wasn't able to really make any connections there as far as, gigs. I had a teacher, my personal instructor at GIT, and he said, "Hey, I've got some gigs. I think you'd be good for," and all that. And he kind of mentioned some gigs, but as far as actually coughing up the phone number and saying, "Hey, go audition for these guys," it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And he was the one that even told me, he said, in this town, it's not who you know, it's who you blow. And I think he meant that in both ways, if you know what I'm saying. It was the 80s at that time. This was around like 1988 when I went to GIT. So I went to school for a year. I learned as much as I can. I practiced as much as I can. And I got the basis. I could already play rock guitar when I went out there. That wasn't an issue, but I could learn a few more techniques in that style. But I also focused on kind of learning how to improvise over jazz changes, or at least improved on my ability to do that. And that gave me a nice foundation for later on. But the Sunset Strip was not about playing over chord changes. I mean, some of the better players did, and maybe some of them did it without not even knowing it. But it was all about flash and hype and all of those things. But an entire industry cropped up, feasting on the dreamers. And, it's the same thing where I talked about Nashville's dirty secret. and that there were, producers that would prey upon people with a dream and a gleam in their eye. And it's the same thing in Los Angeles, but somebody in one of the comments, in the comment sections in my videos they're just gold. They're just gold, because this guy reminded me of what exactly was in Music Connection. Now, you had to buy Music Connection, and the last I checked, it was $1.50 an issue. But I'm sure if it still exists, I'm sure it's a lot more than that now. But back in the day, it was $1.50. You'd go in, you'd buy an issue. Say you tried out for a band or whatever, and you needed you were looking for a gig, or you were looking for a musician for your band or whatever. You'd go to the liquor store, you'd buy an issue of Music Connection, and then you'd start scouring the ads, or you'd place an ad, and they would allow you to call in. There was a Music Connection hotline, and you would call in, and you'd write your ad beforehand, and then you'd read it over the phone. And the next week you would get the issue, you'd buy the issue, and there would be your ad. So, it was pretty cool in that regard, is that you could place a free ad, you could answer the ads. You just needed to buy an issue. And I didn't buy, Music Connection every week, but I would buy it, when I needed an audition, or I was looking for a band or looking for a player, I'd go and buy Music Connection. But inside that magazine would be filled with ads. And, this was probably a bigger part of the revenue of that magazine than their actual sales. There'd be ads for vocal instructions and guitar lessons, and hair extensions, and hair salons, and performance training, and all of these sort of industry, these people that had been in the industry. They would advertise, former singer with Anthrax, and now giving vocal lessons, learn how to sing with power, and all this, and these ridiculous ads for hair extensions. There would be, pictures before, and it'd be a guy with, hair about my length. And then the next picture after, and it'd be, guy with just, mounds of hair, and all just clipped onto his head. But, it was the 80s. And, if you didn't have long hair, you didn't have the right image, you weren't going to get the gig. So people were desperate. There were guys I knew that didn't have much hair, and they wore wigs, and, there were very popular bands that were MTV stalwarts. Didn't the guys in Great White, weren't they, the singer and the guitar player both wearing wigs? It's crazy to think about now, and I don't think we really realized it at the time. Now it seems like I can't do a video without somebody, saying, "Bad wig, bro," and I never had to wear a wig. I've got, a good head of hair still at my age, but, this whole business, and then the ads for studios. The ads for producers. We will produce your band and shop it to labels. You would have all kinds of ads of people offering all these services. And, most of the people that I knew that were trying to break into the industry didn't have a lot of money. So if you were paying for these vocal lessons, and then the other thing is rehearsal studios. Ads for places to rehearse. And, you would scrape together your, 5 guys would scrape together $10 each and go rent, a couple of hours at a rehearsal studio or whatever. But, you're starting to see that there was an entire industry built on feeding on the people that were trying to make it. And this is the same for actors. with vocal coaches and photographers and acting lessons and, acting studios and, all of these different things would crop up and feast on people. Now, there were bands that had, a bankroll behind them. Maybe they've got an investor, and the investor would come in and say, okay, we're going to take your singer, and we're gonna set him up with vocal lessons. And there were one or two vocal experts in LA that if you were thought you had a chance, they would send you to the vocal instructor, and the vocal instructor would be basically examining and seeing what you had. So sometimes to just qualify you, maybe for a record deal, they'd send you, hey, we want to send you to our vocal guy, get you a free vocal lesson. And they'd send you down to this vocal lesson. But in reality, the vocal teacher was checking out your voice to see if it really is good. And so you would go down there and, you think you're just going for a vocal lesson, but really they're trying to find out what you have and if it's any good. Because a lot of times in a club, and back in those days, we'd be playing with high volume and guitar amps blasting on stage, and you've got a mic and it's blasting and amplifying it, and it'd be tough to really hear how good a vocalist is this person. But between the image consultations and the hair salons. Now, there was a salon out in Pasadena called Long Hair Rocks. And I would always see Long Hair Rocks, and it would make it seem like it's this salon with the rock and roll salon, and it's in Pasadena, and and all this. And I remember it was my birthday one day, and I called up some of my friends and said, hey, it's my birthday. I wanna go to this salon. I brought a bottle of cheap champagne, and I said, let's go to Long Hair Rocks, and we'll have the rocker chicks cut our hair, and it'll be this it'll be like this birthday thing. I thought it would be cool to go to Long Hair Rocks, and so we drove out to Pasadena. And I show up, and I've got my champagne, and I get there, and it was just another hair salon, man. It wasn't any like mecca of rock stardom, and I was just a guy in there with a couple of his friends, having a drink and getting a little haircut. It wasn't really all it was hyped to be. And, the music industry feasts on people with dreams. I've talked about it in my Nashville video, how producers will find somebody with money. And the Sunset Strip was no different. I mean, if you know about Angeline, and back in my time in Hollywood, you would see these ads, and it would have this blonde with this look like some kind of blonde wig and these, high fashion sunglasses, and you'd see her driving around town in this pink Corvette, and she'd be in the ads, it'd be Angeline, and she'd be on top of the car, and this huge billboard that you knew cost thousands and thousands of dollars. But she had a wealthy donor, or she had somebody bankrolling her, and they were just plastering her billboard in Hollywood. But it kind of made her known around town, but it didn't make her a star. All that money spent, all those billboards and the pink Corvette and all that. And I'm sure whoever was bankrolling the billboards was probably paying her mortgage or her rent. But this industry that feasts on people with a dream. I think some of it is good. I think, if you don't know what you're doing, I think getting vocal lessons or guitar lessons or, working on your image, it's not a bad thing. But, like I said before in my Nashville video, there's some people that just have no shot. They have no talent. They don't have the look. But maybe they've got somebody bankrolling their career. Maybe they're bankrolling it themselves. Maybe they're working a day job. Maybe they're working 2 jobs to pay for all their lessons and consultations and hair treatments and vocal lessons and photos, 8x10s and all of this stuff that they think they need to fund their career and get to the next level. But the reality is they're just a gerbil in a wheel, spinning their wheels, and it's not going anywhere. It is a very tough business.